Ashley. Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to the new series of e-dialogues that Urban Update, All India Institute of Local Self-Government, and CDNet is collaborating to organize this series of webinar on localization of SDGs. Today, we are joined by an eminent lineup of speakers. We will invite all the speakers after the brief introduction of this subject, of this initiative, from Deputy Director General of All Indian Institute of Local Self-Government, Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru. So before we go to Mr. Guru, I would like to tell you about this initiative and how and what are the activities we are going in this whole program that we are jointly organizing with CityNet, planning with CityNet. In this whole exercise, the main objective is to empower and develop capacity of urban local bodies in India to implement the 2030 agenda of sustainable development goals, where cities are empowered and can implement initiatives to achieve the targets set under the SDGs. So in India, NITI Aayog is the nodal agency which is executing several programs in different cities and states. Many government of India initiatives, including Swachh Bharat Mission, Smart Cities Mission, Amrit, they are targeted to empower and capacitate urban local bodies, municipal officials, and elected representatives so that they can improve the livability of their cities, improve the quality of life of their citizens, and meanwhile, improve their infrastructure and service delivery mechanism. So the government of India and many different agencies in the country are trying to build a mechanism where cities are empowered to achieve the global goals. So it is not just limited to sustainable development goals, but also several other goals, whether we talk about new urban agenda or Sendai framework, because in the time of pandemic, we have seen the cities were at the forefront of handling this crisis. But sadly, many of our city systems suffered badly, and ultimately people had to suffer. So we are trying to build through this program, capacitate urban local body officials and elected representatives to build a pandemic resilient, disaster resilient cities, and meanwhile also trying to develop a mechanism where these cities become financially sustainable. They have so they can have easy access to resources, they can plan their responses well in time and execute also well. So I will not take much of your time because we have distinguished speakers who will be dwelling on this subject in detail. So I will go to Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, Deputy Director General of All Indian Institute of Local Self-Government, to tell us more about the activity LRGs is doing with CityNet and planning, and what the institute is doing otherwise for empowering urban locals and supporting localization of SDGs in India. Over to Mr. Guru.
Thank you, Abhishek. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi Ranjan Guru, and I'm working here as a Deputy Director General. First of all, I would like to thank CityNet for providing us this opportunity to work on this program. We are very much happy to see the kind of support that we are getting from the CityNet. Like Abhishek mentioned about this, the whole programs and about the localization of SDG. Uh, I know most of you know about these sustainable development goals, and there are 17 targets, and there is 169, 17 goals and 169 targets. One of the studies I have been going through, and we found that out of these 169 targets, most of the targets are directly or indirectly linked with the urban local bodies. And there we are here to support the urban local bodies. We have been working on a various program and activities to support the SDG in SDG implementation on ground, and we're supporting the urban local bodies across India to take these SDG on ground. We are very happy to tell you that ALAZ has been engaged in the various state government providing the capacity building support, doing the hand holding support to the or urban local bodies. For example, we are working with the Swachh Bharat mission, and out of that Swachh Bharat mission, there are almost 16, 17, state and the urban local bodies where the ALAZ has been hand-holding and supporting to implementation of Swachh Bharat mission in local level. Similarly, we are also working and supporting the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is also linked directly with the SDG goal. We are working with the government of Bihar and providing all the support to the urban local bodies and the citizen to take the support in implementation of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana at the state level. We are also working on the smart city project. We are supporting the Aligarh Municipal Corporation, Saharanpur Municipal Corporation in implementation of the smart city programs at the urban local bodies. Our team is there. Team is providing the day-to-day assistance to the urban local bodies, and they are implementing the smart city project on ground level. What we are also thinking, or what we believe that urban local bodies need a lot of support and in terms of capacity building programs, because they are the one who actually dealing directly with the citizen and the community, and need a lot of support on terms of providing the technical support and hand holding kind of a support. And we are very fortunate to tell you that ALAZ has been continuously providing those supports to the urban local bodies. We have number of activities. We are working with the thanks to another project with the European Union. We are working with the one of the state in India, that is Jharkhand, where we are talking about the girl power, and we are providing all sort of support to the local community and the community based organization to develop the certain kind of market connect for in local NGO and entrepreneur. So there are a lot of women entrepreneurs we find or we have seen in the various parts of India. So this project is basically supporting these entrepreneurs to develop or provide certain kind of platform so that they can their product can be come to the market very easily. And we are actually, thanks to European Union for providing this support, we are implementing this 5-year project, and this project is directly or indirectly linked with the once again the SDG goals. And we are most of the projects and programs which is happening in India, whether talking about the ICPP program, where we are having MOU with the almost 17 state in India, where we are actually providing the capacity building programs on a various component and various mission of Government of India, whether it is Amrut, whether it is a smart city, whether it's a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, whether it's a Swachh Bharat mission, all sort of a training programs we are providing. And we are very proudly say that we have done more than 200 training programs in year 2019-20. And because of this pandemic, we couldn't do much on the ground last year, but we are hopefully and we are hoping that this will be continue once this lockdown is over. And during this lockdown also, as a ALAZ has been given a lot of support to the various webinar. We have an urban update team who has been continuously doing a lot of urban webinar programs and providing the support to the various mayors, commissioner, and the urban local bodies official to deal this pandemic. During this pandemic situation, we have conducted more than 35 webinars on a various subject, and bringing the international expertise to the local expertise to the particular platform, and giving a lot of exchange information to the various local bodies. And we have seen that how these programs has helped the various urban local bodies across India in dealing this pandemic situation. So other than that, we are also providing a lot of manpower support to deal this pandemic situation. One of many urban local bodies, we have one regular programs called Diploma in Sanitary Inspector, which is more like a multi-purpose health worker training program. So we have been providing a lot of these technical trained manpowers to deal the challenges of a pandemic. And they are the frontline worker. They are working as a frontline worker in the various urban local bodies and providing the situation, providing the solution to the particular urban local bodies. We have seen that how this pandemic has affected a lot of urban areas, and the challenges has become and the challenges has been become more aggressive. So what we are doing that to deal these challenges, we are continuously providing the technical support and the capacity building programs to the urban local bodies. And now this webinars which we have started today, thanks to once again CityNet and all the partners who are partnering with us for organizing this program. And thanks to all the participants who are showing the interest. I can see that right now almost 65 participants are there, including the attendees and the panelists, which shows that how people are interested to to participate in such programs, which is happening for the sake of for the providing the certain kind of a solution to urban local bodies. So with these words, I once again welcome all of you for this programs. And I'm sure that after this program there are a lot of new information you can get it, and this will be beneficial for all the attendees and the participants. So thanks to everyone. Thanks, Vishek, and over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guru, for telling us about how ALSG is helping in localization of SDGs, and how All India Institute of Local Self-Government is focusing on skill development, market connect for women, and providing its expertise support to different stakeholders. Thank you very much for your introductory remarks and telling us about this whole initiative that All India Institute of Local Self-Government is doing with CityNet and other partners. Talking about partners, we have Dr. Pascaline Gaborit, founder of Pilot for Dev. We are thankful to her for accepting our request to become partner of this series of webinars. So Dr. Pascaline is with a PhD background in political science. Dr. Gaborit has published several books and articles on cities, international cooperation, culture, conflicts, and gender. She organizes and moderates events, publishes reports, research, and coordinates projects. Dr. Pascaline was the director of Pilot Cities Network for 12 years. So I will not take much of your time, and I will directly go to Dr. Pascaline, and we will be talking about role of local government and what are the opportunities they have and challenges they may face while localizing sustainable development goals. So over to Dr. Pascaline.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abhishek Pandey, for inviting me to this seminar. Thank you very much, Mr. Ravi Guru from IIA LSG and CityNet for this invitation. It's really an honor to be here and to be exchanging on this very important issue of the role of cities and the localization of sustainable development goals, which is something very important in different countries. So very shortly, I will just introduce my organization, which is Pilot for Dev, which is an NGO independent initiative that connects stakeholders active in sustainable development, climate, cities, governance, and the environment, and more especially the implementation of sustainable development goals. The objectives of the organization are to promote good governance, fight against climate change and SDGs, combine research and action, and to connect multi-stakeholders for knowledge exchange. So we are really working in different countries on this question of cities and their action in climate, but also on the water management and on the waste management and on climate adaptation and resilience, which is an increasing growing concept. The point is that cities are hit by climate change, but they can also be seeds for solutions. Hundreds of millions of people in poor areas are also hit by poverty and lack of basic infrastructure, such as water, sanitation. And problems will get worse when the most fragile territories will become affected by more impacts of climate change, such as rising sea levels, floods, landslides, and toxic peaks of pollution, as well as droughts and extreme heats, which are also creating problems for food security in many countries, especially Africa, for instance. Cities and local governments are increasingly recognized as key actors in addressing climate challenges, SDGs, as well as early warnings and disaster risk management. But of course, they are more and more confronted also to the question of funding, because they are really ambitious targets, but funding gets really a growing question on how the cities and local governments can implement the best adapted programs to implement the SDGs at the local level. We are working with on different questions. We have a project which is mainly in Indonesia, but we are also working with AILSG on the climate resilient and resilient cities program, which is a CRIC and which is funded by the European Union. And we see in this program that this was based that the question of urban growth is also increasing the problems, especially, for instance, in countries like Indonesia, but also India, China, and with questions which are linked to the extension of the urban facilities and the access to transportation, water, waste management solutions, and also sustainable and affordable housing. So more and more as well, there are problems linked to the sinking of cities, like the city of Jakarta, or the cities like Mexico, which are also sinking below the sea level, and which is creating problems of flooding. So this project, Climate Resilient and Inclusive Cities, is spanning 5 years. The idea was to have a cooperation between different cities and to create sustainable local action plans and to organize a link between research, expert panels, and the implementation of actions. So for this, we are working with 10 pilot cities spread over Indonesia and different regions, all of them being confronted to several problems. We also work on a different project, which is in Africa, in Tanzania, which is a country which is really interesting. It's a sustainable country. It's a growing economy. And the question there was also how to work on the sustainable development goals, how the government is working with the private sector and with the cities in the implementation of the sustainable development goals. Our conclusions on this project was that the dialogue and research were also very important in the implementation of these goals. So we have examples of cities, so case studies. The first one is the question of, for instance, water and sanitation in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which is a city which is home to officially 6.3 million inhabitants, but in reality it could be even the double. The question is first of all, the question of informal housing settlement, urban sprawl, deforestation because of the urban extension, but also access to clean water. Officially, 70% of the people in the city have access to clean water, but in reality, it's much less. Since we see that the schools, for instance, have only access to 48% of clean water and really basic sanitation programs. So this is a country, Tanzania, for instance, education has been on the rise. Now, more than 80% of children are scholarized. So education was really a great achievement from the government, also, of course, with the implication of cities, but other programs like climate adaptation are creating difficulties. And the question of water is really linked to climate change, because of the rise of the sea level, the water reservoirs are more and more polluted by salt water, which is creating concern for drinking water, and which is also creating concern because the people need to go further and further to fetch the water and the clean water. So this has been one of the main problems and challenges which we discussed during our project. The question of protection of a marine and the land ecosystem is also a very important question there. And this is something where we see that the local authority have a little grasp, because the pollution can be sometimes external and need the implication also of the government and also the private sector. Another city we are working with, which is more in the framework of our project, is Banjarmasin, which is located in Kalimantan, Indonesia. The question there is also the question of water, because they are, first of all, the home of many rivers. So this is creating a question of flooding during the rain season, and also the question of clean water provision is at stake in Banjarmasin. So most of the rivers need cleaning because of waste management problems. So the waste management problems are creating pollution of rivers, which is in return causing floods, but also problems with access to clean water. And they are implementing now a program to solve this problem. Kalimantan is also, Samarinda, sorry, is also in Samarinda, is also located in Kalimantan, and there they are more working on a program of waste management because they've been faced with waste littering and environmental degradation, which is also creating problems of flooding. So these three interrelated issues are the basis of a program for Samarinda. Finally, Ternate, which is more in the northeast of Indonesia, is developing a program of disaster resilience and adaptation strategy to disasters. And here we see as well that the city is really a pioneer in developing this early warning system and working with the climate agency, working with the disaster management agency. But we see that the question of integration into national programs and the question of international funding may become really important in the next decades, because many similar territories will be faced with climate change problems. So this question of localizing SDGs is really important, is really key for the achievement of the goals and also the achievement of the indicators. The reports at the moment are not so optimistic on whether we are going to reach most of the indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, also because of the pandemics. Some of the goals have been going backwards in their implementation. In my opinion, what is the result of our research is that the funding of local SDGs and of cities is the most important, because if the cities have access to the funding, they are close to the inhabitants, and they are also working with the national governments. So the most important is that they have also the capacities from a budget level to implement the programs. The link with the national plans and with the national development contribution is important, so that it's also linked with the national programs. The multi-stakeholders cooperation, the need to work with and the engagement of the local population. In Tanzania, we also have a result, a finding from our research is that inclusive budgeting with young people and women is an interesting point for developing our programs. adaptive design, of course, in the urban planning and in the long-term planning. And my conclusion would be that the needs are urgent and tremendous, because there are more and more important needs in the cities, apart from the goal 11, which are all interrelated and which are also with this partnership with the goals, the goal 17 is very important, also with the idea of, like they always say in the UN agency, to leave no one behind, which is something which is of course important. So I hope I was not too long. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pascaline, for your insights and how giving us the example of Tanzania and Indonesia, how climate resiliency strategies are being implemented and being planned, and also telling us about how local governments can strategize the implementation of localizing SDGs, finding funding solutions, because the funding for localizing SDGs is also a crucial component. Thank you. I hope you will remain with us. We have some questions from the audience we can ask you, but thank you for your presentation. Now, talking about localization of SDGs, today with us is the Commissioner of Varanasi Nagar Nigam, Mr. Gaurang Rathi. He is an Indian Administrative Service Officer of 2014 batch. He is the Chief Development Officer of the Government of Uttar Pradesh and also served as the Municipal Commissioner of Varanasi City and CEO of Varanasi Smart City Limited. He has ground level knowledge of the functioning of urban local bodies in India and has been at the forefront of various government funded development projects. And talking about this pandemic response, the role of smart cities has been very crucial, and how cities are trying to build resilience after facing first wave and now the second wave. So he is also one of the stakeholders. He's one of the decision makers who is deciding how cities can respond to the crisis in urgency in the emergency times. So I welcome Mr. Gaurang Rathi, and I would like to know from your introductory remarks on the statement that how Varanasi Municipal Corporation is localizing SDGs, and what are your thoughts, why this initiative of localizing SDGs is so important, how global goals can impact livability of a city like Varanasi. Over to you, Mr. Rathi.
Yeah, am I audible, Mr. Pandey?
Yes, yes, sir, you are.
Right. So a very good morning to everyone who are there as a part of this today's webinar that we are organizing on how do we localize sustainable development goals vis-a-vis a particular city or a district. I'll be talking about my perspective from a field practitioner and an administrative service officer as to how the narrative here in the city is close to what we envisage when we talk about social development goals, and how are we placed to actually implement them, and how close we are in a developing country and aspiring country like India to attaining so, and especially in those parts of the country like Uttar Pradesh, which are relatively, if we compare it to some other parts of the country, are relatively, a bit far behind in this development goal initiative, or if you are to say the benchmark reaching race, if you may call it. So keeping that in mind, I'll say, sustainable development goals has the most important word in this whole phrase of sustainable development goals is sustainability. Development has always been a paradigm that that has come to be described at different phase of evolution of development, and might sometimes change. It might be a shifting goalpost. Goal again is about reaching towards that, but the most important aspect is sustainability. So any of the development paradigm that we are adopting and the phase of evolution we are standing at we're trying to aspire to a level wherein that sustains. So I'll give you a small example. Like in case of Varanasi, we know it's a city which is known as cultural capital of India. It's one of the most ancient cities of the world, and here this aspect of sustainability assumes a different proportion altogether, wherein we not only have to achieve the benchmark of water availability, sewage management, solid waste management that are defined for any place in the country or in the world, but also we have to weave it with the warp and weft of the culture that is so integral to the city's identity. So when we say that, then when we are talking about maintaining sustainability aspect of it, so there are several projects where we have to where we cannot just go about going greenfield and removing a chunk of culture from the city and imposing our changes over the city. So this has been well even documented as well, wherein when we say that we need to bring intrinsic development in a particular city, then there shouldn't be a superimposition of exterior goals or exterior understanding of the development in that particular city. So I'll take a small example of sewage management in the city. So when we were trying to reach the when we have been trying to reach the benchmark of sewage management in the city, wherein none of the water bodies in the city, since city is blessed to have two water bodies, one of them being major water body of India, River Ganga, flowing through it, then we not only have to ensure that the sewage management network that we are building across the city is congruent to what already existed, but also the fact that the cultural ethos of people who are living around the river basin, that is also kept in mind. So by keeping that in mind, the sewage treatment plants which were built, keeping in mind the fact that we have to not have a STP close by the river, because the earlier concept of sewage management in the city during British times was to be that you used to collect sewage from one end of the city, and then if there is a river body, then you would dump that sewer at the other end of the city where the habitation ended into the river. So dumping sewer into the river was never considered a taboo thing. But of course, the things have changed over last 100 years, 100 odd years, and it cannot be the case. So the tool that we used, the economics would have suggested that we should have built a STP where all the sewer was converging. But keeping in mind the cultural ethos, we decided no, this STP has to go further away from the city, further away from the centers, which are where the people won't like an STP to exist, and where there would be an inherent opposition to having structures of treatment close to the river body and close to the religious places. So, our network and our understanding of how we are managing the city also took care of the fact that it has to sustain, it has to be imbibed by the people, and that's how we went about laying the sewage network for last 6-7 years here in the city, by intricately mapping it, keeping it away from the centers where it would have faced opposition. Similarly, for solid waste management, solid waste management in Varanasi was a rather uphill task, keeping in mind the fact that the city never sort of sleeps, and you have religious and cultural activities that go on throughout the day. So keeping that in mind, you couldn't have had the simple formula of having door-to-door collection only in the morning, and then backing it up with proper processing and lifting of the waste. And of course the narrowness of the lanes, etc., compounded the problems. So our technique of managing waste has also taken care of the fact that we have localized solutions within the city of different places that further adds on to the overall solution, that is door-to-door collection of the waste. So these are some of the sustainable tools which were sort of locally manufactured and locally inherited by the city in its quest to reach the ultimate SDGs, as the umbrella term of SDG as defined by the UN. For now, I think this would be a couple of examples that I would want to talk about, Mr. Pandey. I think we can move ahead with the discussion. If at all, I would be needed to chip in with some idea of mine, then I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insight and how Varanasi is responding in terms of waste and sewage management and how it is localizing the solutions for the requirement of the city and considering the sentiments of the people and working in collaboration with people with the local community. I think that is very crucial for localizing SDGs. The people participation and their involvement in decision making is really of significance. So thank you for your input. And I would like to mention that that in Varanasi, we have also All Indian Institute of Local Self-Government has also organized urban dialogues earlier also in 2016 and 17. And we are fortunate that you are here with when we are beginning this initiative with CityNet. Thank you so much for joining. And
yeah, my pleasure.
And I'll request you to please stay with us. So if there is any question from the audience, so that I can direct at the end of this when all the speakers have finished their presentation. Now I would like to move to our other speaker. I will ask Ms. Prerna Vijayakumar Mehta. She is Associate Director of Urban Development, WRI India. Ms. Mehta was a member of the BIS Committee CED 59 for Smart Cities and has led financing Sustainable Cities Initiative Labs to accelerate innovative solutions for energy, water, and waste sectors. Ms. Mehta has also authored varied research pieces, blogs, and articles on subjects of urban planning, transit-oriented development, and affordable housing. I will welcome Ms. Prerna to speak on the subject and how urban local bodies can localize SDGs, what are the challenges they could face, and how we can strategically plan the solutions and localize solutions for implementation and achievement of SDGs within the time frame. Over to you, Ms. Prerna.
Thank you, Abhishek, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation today. This is an interesting topic, and this has been close to the area of our work in and out. When it comes to Sustainable Development Goal, India has played an important role in shaping the SDGs and has effectively committed to achieving them with its National Development Agenda motto of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, collective efforts for inclusive growth. Now, the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development adopted by the UN in 2015, UN member states in 2015, provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet. At its heart are the 17 SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all countries developing and developed in global partnership. They recognize that ending inadequacies must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequalities, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve a natural ecosystem. This gives us an overarching intent of how what SDGs are focused on and how intensely India is committed to achieve these goals. In the next few points, I would discuss some points that will reflect on ground realities, or rather opportunities and challenges when it comes to implementation of SDGs in the local context. Let's start with some facts that are driving India's urban development discourse. 31% of India's population lives in urban areas, and out of this, 17% are living in slums. By 2030, India is projected to be home of 7 megacities, with population above 100 million, 10 million, and 70% of infrastructure in India is yet to be built. As Mr. Ravi discussed, the Government of India has initiated several missions to manage this unprecedented growth and improve the quality of life for urban citizens. These missions are aligned with SDGs to make cities future ready and provide opportunities for all with access to basic services, energy, housing, transportation, and more. However, the success of all efforts lie in how local governments participate and tap into the offered opportunity. While the expectation of robust commitments from local government is correct, as the local governments are uniquely positioned to deploy contextual or local actions that will help in advancing SDG targets. But when it comes to translating this global agenda to local action, the local governments need support and clarity. Let us look at some of the points that may be considered when it comes to localizing SDGs. The first in line is the institutional setup and frameworks. At city level, it is observed that the existing institutional frameworks does not clearly define the roles and responsibilities between state governments, terrestrial agencies, and urban local bodies regarding planning and implementation. Now, this is coupled with lack of horizontal coordination between departments and various agencies, especially when it comes to data sharing and taking collaborative decisions. I think it is time to reevaluate the institutional structures and mandates for facilitating and achieving collaborative and contextual development actions. Without that, we would not be able to progress towards the most discussed, and I would quote, the approach of integrated planning. It is difficult if we do not have that kind of institutional setup or frameworks that facilitates this sort of collaboration and coordination. Second is about awareness and capacity building of involved stakeholders. It is imperative to undertake a comprehensive approach when it comes to empowering urban local bodies and making sure that they fall in line with the expectations that are set. Raising awareness and building capacities of involved stakeholders is one of the essential steps. And while doing so, it is imperative to focus on how to, for offering actionable information that enables the stakeholders to understand the methodology for putting theory to practice, while explaining the possibilities of contextualizing for various settings. India is a diverse nation, and it has different scales when it comes to the cities and population concentrations, and hence it is important that when building the capacities of all the involved stakeholders, it is actually contextualized to the geography or the area they want to apply it to. The third in line is data gathering and data use for integrated urban development and management. I think this is one of the very important challenges because despite the availability of large amount of data with different agencies, not much of it is used to draw insights and create actionable intelligence for city governance, as well as establishing evidence for what needs amendments for adapting to changing requirements. For example, in today's time of pandemic, the recent data that is published, it says that 90% of COVID-19 cases were found in urban areas. And these were more concentrated in the areas with high urban population. Going granular to this data, it shows that almost 42% of households in urban India had no room for social distancing. Now, what does this kind of point us to? Do we look at our regulations? Can we step back, look at what is required to be amended? What are we falling short of? When 17% of population resides in slums, what are the kind of conditions they're living in? Are those beds to kind of for allowing such sort of disease or pandemics to thrive, and then what sort of actions we need to take. And actions, this is urgency. This is not an action in a business as usual. It is an urgency which needs to be acted upon. The fourth in line is facilitating effective collaborations. Now, this is a very effective way of strengthening the urban local bodies, because usually what we hear is the urban are either resource strapped, or they do not have funding, or they do not have capacities. So effective collaborations come in handy to kind of bridge this gap. And these can be of two types. One is partnering with private sector or startups to bridge the service delivery gap through innovation or technical solutions. And second is through partnering with cities for peer-to-peer learning to understand effective measures of governance, capacity building, technology application, etc. Another sort of association could be with community organizations such as resident welfare associations, local NGOs like Goonj or Bhumi that can bring in grassroots level needs assessment for local bodies to set their priorities as well as create awareness among people. And I think COVID-19 and this pandemic time has shown us how this robust ecosystem can actually work for cities. And the last point in the list is unhindered and innovative funding access. And I think one of the most critical enablers for any development intervention is finance. Strong access to funding for urban local bodies would require to bridge the existing financial gap through better allocation, adopting innovative financing mechanism to raise funding, and leveraging international and domestic sources for public and private sector. And today, when we closely study our frameworks or our regulatory mandates, we realize that there is very little room to kind of maneuver through this. Urban local bodies are always in dilemma to tap into certain private sector funding or certain international funding. Although there are opportunities there. For example, GEF7 funding gives them an opportunity to bring international funding, and actually gives them an international platform to showcase what cities have achieved. So while we talk about building capacities, while we talk about aligning the roles and responsibilities, we also need to kind of understand how this can be done, and funding and financing is one of the very important and critical aspects. Empowering urban local bodies through strong institutional structures and mandates, up-to-date knowledge, functional and effective collaboration, as well as robust funding access will allow effective on-ground actions, especially with a clear understanding of diverse geographies and climatic conditions, thus facilitating contextual measures. With this, I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us a list of strategical action plan, how cities can plan their localization of sustainable development goals. And the main point that could be the highlight of this, the presentation or the statement that you made, that the data, financing, collaboration, these are the key to localization of SDGs, especially in those cities where those are not well resourced finance.
I think we lost Abhishek. Is that just me?
No, I think, yeah, Abhishek, we have lost Abhishek.
Capacity implementation strategy, how they are doing it, and what they can do in addition to whatever the initiatives they have already taken. So talking about Mr. Khandekar, he is currently the president of Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association. He's also a journalist, environmentalist. He has been with Dainik Bhaskar for quite long time. Earlier, he was with Hindustan Times. He's also an author, environmentalist, TV anchor. So he wears different hats and different times. Today, I request him to please give us insight on how cities can develop their resources, can capacitate their people in when they are responding and when they are planning activities for implementing sustainable development goals at local level. So over to you, Mr. Kandekar.
Thank you, Abhishek. We have already heard the introduction, and we know what the SDGs will eventually do to the society and the global society, I mean. And we must also know that 7 years have already gone, and we are just in the middle of the entire program of SDGs implementation. And that means that only about 8-9 years are left for achieving all the targets. So what are the different countries doing, what India is doing? So I would rather, instead of talking of about all the 17 goals, I would just flag a couple of them which are environmentally very important and also important as far as the urban sector is concerned. So for those who may be new to this SDG, because when I extended this invitation to a large number of people, I was really surprised that not many people and experts in different fields were much aware about the status of SDGs and how the MDGs were failed in 2015 and what was the necessity to bring about the SDGs in 2000 when the Millennium Development Goals were envisaged and they were implemented after 15 years when the stock taking took place at the global level. Everyone was surprised to see that not much of progress was made and the MDGs were actually a failed attempt. So with renewed vigor, the United Nations have once again brought in the SDGs. So I would say that the number 2 of the 17 SDGs is talking about ending hunger and ensuring food security and nutrition and also sustainable agriculture. So sustainable agriculture is very, very important in today's times where we are already thinking of water scarcity all over the world. Number 6 goal talks about sustainable management of water and sanitation. Number 7 talks about access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy for all. We are already talking about solar alliance and things like that. So this goal is very important. And when we are talking as AILSG, 11 number goal is very important about making cities inclusive, safe, and resilient. So I will talk about it a little later. And the 12th number goal is about sustainable consumption. This is somehow most of the societies are not really aware of making consumption sustainable. We must look into the aspect of our own consumption at individual level. And NITI Aayog, which circulated, which is the nodal agency in India and circulating a number of directives, they have also been saying that ultimately it is not about the government of India or state government, but also the private sector should also try and make SDGs successful. So there comes the issue of consumption. And the 13th goal is about combating the climate change, and climate change is now a global challenge, global issue, and nobody can escape the climate change impact on individuals as well as cities as well as on the nations. So the goal 13 is very important about combating the climate change, and we have seen Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently attending the climate change meeting convened by the newly elected president of the US. So goal 14 is about conserving oceans, seas, and marine ecosystems and resources, which is also a neglected area in India, which the cities which are basically on the coastal line of India should be looking at what are the issues that can be handled as far as conserving oceans and seas and marine resources are concerned. And the last one, as far as environmental concern, as I said, I would like to talk about environmental goals. Last one is about, the number is 15, which says protect and restore the terrestrial ecosystems in the country. So this is not about India, this is about Brazil, this is about developing countries in Europe, this is about US, this is about Pakistan, this is about China, everywhere. But as far as India is concerned and this topic is concerned, I would like to really put it forward in a very frank manner, that the urban local bodies in many states are not actually looking at the SDGs implementation at their level. Most of the senior commissioners and most of the senior officers I have spoken over a period of time, they said that SDGs development or SDGs implementation is not really our area of concern, and we have no priorities, we have no budgets, and we have no direct funding for implementation of the SDGs. So this is the scenario where AILSG can actually do the hand holding with cities, in wherein we can pick up maybe 3 or 4 goals and help them in implementing that, because they don't have this capacity. Ultimately, municipal administration, as we all know very, very well now, that there are engineers, there are some administrators who get changed here and there, and ultimately the capacity building that we are talking about remains, challenged. So as far as SDGs implementation and localization in various cities, we can do certain things with the help of major cities. Like I was very happy that the Varanasi municipal commissioner was able to understand the SDGs implementation in an ancient city like Varanasi, where the urban challenges are much different than what they are in Delhi or Mumbai. So this is very important for AILSG and for other stakeholders also, including World Resource Center, including NIUA, including Urban Development Ministry and the state governments, to pin down to, there have been number of seminars and workshops that have been held in the last 7 years, which I have attended. But the fact remains that SDG is somehow not percolating down to the level where the activities have to take shape and convert the later into actions. So that, Abhishek, you will also realize this way, because you are interacting with number of commissioners across the country. The fact remains that the mayors are absolutely unaware of the SDG goal. And now what I'm really worried about is that only 9 years are left for achieving the goals and 169 targets, and India is also far behind. And therefore, this is time for all of us to join hands to see that, because SDGs, once they even if 70-80% of the targets are achieved, I think our society will be much better, much livable, much resilient, and much futuristic. So this is a challenge for all of us to ensure that the 17 goals and 169 targets are properly implemented. And since I work in the field of environment, I listed these 6-7 goals which directly impact cities as well as the environment. If there is no water supply in city, now the Prime Minister has started the Jal mission, and the piped water is being taken to large number of villages which never had piped water. So this is a very ambitious scheme, and it is being implemented in most of the states in a very good manner, because the Jal Shakti Mantralaya is doing that. But the point is how to end hunger in cities, how to make cities inclusive, how to make sustainable consumption a part of life. So these are all challenges which have been let down, and the NITI Aayog and other agencies have also given proper directives. But the experience is that, I may be wrong, but my experience has been that the goals are far from being achieved as of now. But this is time we can look back and look forward to attaining the targets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sas, for highlighting very important topic that you mentioned, that how many mayors are taking initiatives at local level and how much they are aware. So it reminds me of one thing, because reading newspaper, writing stories for the magazines, especially covering urban issues, even we have not came across about in the house of the local body if the issue of SDGs covered or raised. So that is very unfortunate that at local level
even Abhishek ji, just a small interruption. Even the budgets which are passed of the municipal corporations at different places, they don't make even 0.5%, provision for implementation of SDGs at the way they should have been. Only last week, Indore Municipal Corporation passed the budget. There is no mayor, there are no elections to administrator, 2, 3, 4 IAS officers and a couple of others. They passed the budget, but I don't think, I have not got the copy, but there is no mention of SDGs in the provision for the Indore Municipal Corporation, which is the largest municipal corporation of the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Thank you.
Yes. So I think there is some initiatives by some proactive commissioners. I have seen from Bhopal. I have interacted in Indore also. So Varanasi commissioner also told that he has taken some initiatives for localizing of SDGs. That is very welcome. But I am talking about elected representatives of cities. There is a requirement, there is a urgent need that elected representatives also take part and also initiate proactive involvement in localization of sustainable development goals. I think that could also be part of our next series, how we can empower and make city mayors aware of maybe access to tech by accessing and providing them access to technology and resources or other means. So we can empower them. I think we'll be doing that in our next webinars also. So now I will come to Ms. Akanksha Doria, Program Officer of Cities National Institute of Urban Affairs. Akanksha, she is currently working with National Institute of Urban Affairs as Program Officer, and she has extensive experience in research projects on urban development. Her study on SDG 11 in urban India as regional planner at Institute of Social Sciences displayed an in-depth understanding of the issues and challenges cities confront in spheres connected with sustainability, and also explore the option that they have in taking SDG 11 forward. So Ms. Akanksha, over to you, and I would like to know what has been your experience when you were doing research on SDG 11 and how cities were responding and taking initiatives at the local level. Over to you, Ms. Akanksha.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me here. And I'm really glad that we are now, after having a couple of really tough times, we are better placed now and we are moving forward with renewed energy. So today I would be talking about the strategies and the approaches that the cities program has taken towards, particularly in terms of monitoring and evaluation exercises, but also linking it with the SDG goals and how exactly are we trying to localize the initiatives under monitoring and evaluation in terms of SDGs. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Yes. So before I come directly onto the strategies and approaches that the program has taken, I would briefly introduce what the program is. As you can see, the cities program stands for City Investments to Innovate, Integrate, and Sustain. And it is the initiative which was taken up back in the year 2018, where the intention was to support the Smart Cities mission for more inclusive and sustainable development. sustainable development. It is supported by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, the French Development Agency, and the European Union, and is being coordinated by the Program Management Unit, which is situated in the National Institute of Urban Affairs, and I'm the part of that PMU. If you'll understand the entire program, you'll understand that there are 4 different themes under which 12 major projects have been selected through the challenge process. Now, what sets this program apart from the rest of the programs being implemented in India is, number 1, there is the technical assistance which is being provided to the selected cities. Now, we have a cohort of domestic experts and global mentors who are guiding all the selected cities and the projects in order to conceptualize, plan, design, and finally implement the projects under the cities program. The another thing is how exactly are the projects developed under the cities. So all the projects that are selected under the program are to be developed in 2 different phases. The first one is the maturation phase, where the major development would happen in terms of theory, how exactly the project would be conceptualized, planned, designed. Once that is final for all the cities, they are presented to the special effects body, where they get validated, and then they can move further towards the implementation phase. Under the implementation phase, what happens is the actual implementation in terms of ground development, in terms of building of hard infrastructure, and also in terms of providing softer skills to the teams happen. Now, how do we relate the strategies that we have adopted under the cities program in terms of localizing? So this is a very interesting brief and the definition that comes up in my mind when I learn about localization, particularly in terms of localizing sustainable development goals. So this is the definition that was given by United Cities and Local Governments in 2018. Even if we don't focus on the entire text that is presented on the screen and just focus on the highlighted words, it says defining, implementing, and monitoring strategies at the local level, and setting of goals, targets, means of implementation, indicators to measure and monitor progress. Now, these are the words and these are the phrases that became the foundation for us to define a monitoring and evaluation strategy, and similarly move forward with the exercises. And if you understand what kind of exercises and what kind of activities that the program has done, being facilitated by the program management unit at NIUA, you will be able to define all these exercises into 3 main functions. The first one would be the design, where so in order to understand what exercises that were done here in this part was to define what strategies at the program level and at the local level are needed. You need to basically have the shared understanding of what the approach and what the strategy that needs to be, and also to develop the results chain. Now, how exactly that was done? So there were sessions that were facilitated by the PMU and the SPVs. So there are 12 projects, and 12 projects are being implemented by 12 different SPVs for Smart Cities Mission, who were involved in this program. Now, the PMU tried and facilitated workshops and sessions with those SPVs, and they introduced them to a concept of developing and preparing project logical frameworks. This is nothing but the tools which were provided to the SPVs in order to have a clearer understanding of what they want to do, where they exactly are, what they want to achieve under the cities project, and how exactly would they be willing to do it. Now, once this understanding was developed by all the SPVs, the another question that was posed in front of them was how exactly are they going to measure those changes. Now, they do understand that they are at point A now and they want to reach at point B under the cities project, but how exactly are they going to measure that change? And even if they are able to achieve that change, how exactly are they going to present that? And whether the targets and the goals that were designed and framed under the design functions, are they able to achieve those targets and goals? Even if they are, how do they justify that they are going towards the right direction? So this is when the 3-tier indicator selection methodology was framed in collaboration with Efficacity, which is a Paris-based organization. So the entire identification, selection, classification of indicators here was based on our intention that we need to present the impact both at the program level as well as at the project level. Subsequently, level 1 program level indicators were framed. Here, the intention was to reflect on the impact that the entire program would be having in terms of 5 mere core principles of inclusivity, integration, sustainability, and gender equity. So all the SPVs, all the 12 SPVs were mandated to provide information and data on these indicators every year. The second level of indicators are sectoral indicators. Here, the indicators were framed in order to reflect on the impact that each of the project would be having at the program level across 7 selected chosen indicators. Now, chosen sectors. I'm sorry. The sectors ranges from housing, education, health, transport, and so on and so forth. The third level and the most important level are the project specific indicators. Now we do have to understand that when there are around 12 different projects and we are highlighting one particular project under one particular theme. Let's say, for example, there is a project A which is highlighted under sustainable mobility theme. We need to also understand that the interventions that they would be planning under each of the project would not only be specifically linked to the transport itself. There could be multiple interventions that could impact different sectors. Let's say, for example, environment or socio-economic benefits of the people who are involved in the project. So understanding that kind of interventions, we acknowledged that there would not only be the impact at the program level, but also at the project level. So these are the indicators that were taken up and are specific to each of the projects. Once the identification and selection of indicators were done by all the SPVs, the another step that the SPV took was preparation of their monitoring and evaluation plans. Now, these are quite comprehensive documents. They elaborated on what scope that each of the project would entitle to, and what would be the entire approach that each of the SPV would be taking in order to conduct their monitoring and evaluation activities. So for example, if they are saying that there would be a particular indicator that they would be reporting on, so how frequently they would be reporting on that indicator, who would be responsible to collect that data, when would that be reported, and so on and so forth. So these are the areas and the scope that was introduced in the monitoring and evaluation plans. Further, once the monitoring and evaluation plans were prepared, these are integrated on the cities management platform. So this is a platform which provided easy access for all the SPVs, where the reporting could be done easily at both the levels, program as well as at the project level. Again, moving forward, so once the entire chain of developing indicators, understanding what the project wants, where the project needs to be, and what targets and what goals they aspire to achieve, all these indicators were then subsequently mapped with this SDG goals and targets. Looking at the screen, you can very well understand that these are the program level indicators that we have taken. These indicators very well have a synergy with SDGs. There are 5 SDGs which can be reflected on at the program level, with around 9 SDG targets. So let's say, for example, under good health and well-being, which is goal number 3, all the SPVs that are working and providing health infrastructure under cities project, there would be around 36 new infrastructure that would be developed, and it would be benefiting around 21,000 patients overall. Similarly, for clean water and sanitation, there are certain inputs and interventions that are being done under different cities projects, and it would be benefiting around 10,000 people as a whole. Similarly, for all the projects, the mapping was done with the SDG goals and SDG targets. You'll find that around 12 cities projects are having synergy with around 9 SDGs and around 19 SDG targets. I would conclude my presentation here by saying that right now there are around 12 projects, out of which 4 have already matured. They are moving towards implementing and building up their hard infrastructure, as well as working towards their softer skills as well. All the SPVs have prepared their project logical frameworks. All the SPVs have developed their and identified their indicators. They have prepared their monitoring and evaluation plans as well. We are in the process of integrating those plans on the city's management platform, and once that is complete, all the SPVs would be moving ahead and reporting on these indicators from the Q3 of 2021. Yeah, so that is all, Abhishek. I conclude my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving a framework and developing framework for cities where we can track, everyone can track these activities, how cities are doing and what has been the progress in the past. I think this will really help cities and also the governments to track the progress on each SDGs and how they're performing, what activities they are doing. I think they can also be a knowledge source, a lighthouse for other cities who can learn how these cities have performed in a particular sector. Thank you so much for this presentation and providing details of this program. Now I think we have listened all the speakers. 2 of our speakers have, I think they have to go for some the commitment they have made earlier. Dr. Pascaline, but if you have any question to those speakers, please write to us. We will direct your questions to them, and we will try and get you answers to those questions. Meanwhile, there are some questions from the audience, and there's one question from Mr. Arjun Singh. He has not written who he has directed this question to, but the question is that what central government can do to empower our LRGs and local and regional governments, to give them scope of having some kind of role in decision-making process. So I think I will direct this question to Ms. Prerna, who has written about this subject extensively and talked about some strategical points for the local governments. So Ms. Prerna, can you answer this question?
Sure, Abhishek.
Yeah.
So central government usually don't work in isolation. You know, when central government is proposing anything for that matter, they actually reach out to the state, the region, and city governments. Now, I will give you one example of very recent initiative by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is Climate Smart Cities Initiative. Now, Climate Smart Cities Initiative is an initiative which is essentially targeted to cities, but it involves not just city governments or urban local bodies, but it also involves an understanding from the regional perspective. When you look at that initiative, and they have a framework under this initiative, and when you look at that initiative, you will realize that to actually achieve the targets that are set under the initiative, not one government can do it in isolation. It cannot be done only at a city level or only at a state level or only at a regional level. It is a consortium of these government agencies that work. Besides that, when there is a framing of any sort that happens at a central level, that framing is widely circulated amongst all the stakeholders to ensure their feedback, their understanding, and their perspective of the issue and the relevance of when it comes to their own regions and geographies. So I think that is a standard operating process that the center follows, and there is and also, that is also a time consuming activity. When you see some certain initiatives that are initiated from the center, and then it is trickling down to different scales of governance, then you realize the time lapse. A lot of times we observe that we complain as well that there is so much of time that is going into it, but you have to understand that there is a lot of coordination behind pushing one initiative which is actually making a difference on ground. And then that is just a starting point. You have to then come back, report back, see the progress, evaluate, monitor, align it with the larger goals like SDGs. You have to establish that capacity at different tiers of governance to ensure that it has a common understanding, it has a common language, and the intent of that goal is understood right. So I think I hope I have kind of answered your question in some way.
Thank you for answering this question. And there is another question about the short-term initiative by the urban local bodies and their long-term impacts on achieving such goals. I would like to ask to Mr. Abhilash Khandekarji for what do you think that when the local governments are taking these initiatives for solving a urgent crisis, so how they do envision or they plan such activities? Because since you have been working in many cities closely with the senior officials of the governments, so how do you see that, how local government responds to the urgency and plan their long-term environmental plans?
So if you allow me to be really forthright and honest, I would say that as far as environment related goals are concerned, actually the municipal corporations of major cities and the staff and the officers are, they are in all the time, they are in a firefighting mode. And now the rains have started, so they will be busy. They have been busy in the last 15-20 years. They will again remain busy in Mumbai and Bhopal and Mysore and Bangalore, cleaning up the drains and cleaning up various other things. And that kind of firefighting continues in all the municipal corporations. They don't have time for thinking of really constructive and larger issues which are away from construction activity. Mind you, Abhishek, what I'm saying, that most of the municipal corporations, and this is my personal experience after about 30 years in journalism and writing about urban issues, unfortunately, and this is not a good scenario, and we must make some corrections right from the top to the bottom, where now what you see when the urban, the smart cities or the heritage cities or the other city programs were launched by the union government, the municipal corporation bore the brunt of everything and this began to work in a different direction. So their futuristic problems or solid practical work for the city to be a sustainable city for the next 15-20 years is somehow not being the priority of the municipal corporations or the state governments. I give you example of Ujjain. I tell you, like there was a Varanasi example. Ujjain is one city, ancient city, temple town, which organizes the Kumbh, that is once every 12 years. But the work begins only in the last 2-3 years on a very war footing, but they don't have permanent structures which will take care of the 12-year cycle. So the idea is that what your question is about, whether the municipal corporations are able to do, while there is nothing against, I'm not holding anything against them, but the fact remains that the structure of city administration is such that the municipal corporations are not in a position to undertake long-term programs which will benefit the city. Now we have seen the cleaning of dumps in the last couple of years in some cities. Now whether it is Ghazipur, whether it is Paunar in Bombay, or recently they have done it in Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. But it took about more than 20 years for them to dispose of the stinking garbage dumps. So the point is that there are no such targets whereby, or there is no institutional reply or institutional response to the question that you have raised, which is very important. And if we have to achieve the livable city goal or the target, I think we have to make some changes in the city administration of municipal corporation and also about their mandate. Essentially, when the elections take place, whichever government comes into the municipal corporation administration, they pursue their own agendas, and it is at times different from the diktat from the government of India. As far as SDGs is concerned, I'm not very hopeful that the targets can be achieved if left alone to the municipal corporations to do the ground level situation, to do the ground level work in various Indian cities. Thank you. I hope I have been able to reply to your question.
Okay, I have lost Abhishek. So he's joining back. So maybe we can have just a minute of hold.
Raviji, was I audible? I don't know. I did not have the feedback.
You were audible. So
Okay, good. Thank you.
the thing is that I think we lost Abhishek. So let him join back. Meanwhile, Ashley, just see if anybody else has any question. You can look into this.
Yes, sir. Abhishek sir is also back.
Sorry, there was some internet issue at my end. So I initially heard about the comment of Avilash sir. He was making about how the cities response and the challenges they face in kind of firefighting. They have to be on firefighting mode every time they face an emergency, and that's why they face the lack of resources and even in the funds also when they are addressing the evolving urban challenges. So I think we have listened to every speaker, and there are some questions raised by the audience have also been addressed. So, but all this presentation and everything will be shared with all the participants. Those are participating and those are seeing us on Facebook Live. We will send this link of this video upload to them, and we can also share, with the permission from all these panelists, the presentation they have shared. We can share with the participants also, and maybe we can upload it on Urban Update website, where all the our readers and the participants to this webinar can go and check it out. What are the suggestions and the framework our panelists have suggested. So before we close this webinar, I would request each one of the panelists to briefly sum up the webinar in 2 minutes, so that those could be the takeaways of this webinar for the audience. I will start with Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, the 2 minutes and the takeaways of this webinar.
Okay, thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, everyone. And I would like to thank once again all the participants for participating this webinar. I think this overall, the webinar was very good. We had all kind of panelists. We had the experienced panelists from the Varanasi Commissioner, and we had a panelist from Abhilash Kandekarji to NIA, which is the nodal organization for Government of India. So I think the panelist is quite balanced. We also had a panelist from the from Pilot for Dev, and overall the discussion happened in very good way, and I think we got a lot of new ideas and activities that how the cities of Varanasi is doing the localizing the SDG, especially in the focus area of sewage and then wastewater management. The same way we heard about the Pilot for Dev, about how the climate resilience inclusive cities projects are happening in Indonesia, and also certain kind of a support that they are doing for the Tanzania and other world. Thanks to the NIA for bringing the perspective of how the NIA is doing to support the localizing the SDG. We tried our level best to cover up from how the ALEs is doing to support the urban local bodies in India, and supporting the SDG as to localize the SDG. See, whole idea is that until unless, because most of the targets can be achieved only at the local level. So until unless we can involve the urban local bodies and the local area development department, these SDG achievement would be very questionable. So I think the overall my summary is that it's really went up very well, and thanks to all the once again participants, and my once again thanks to CityNet for providing this support. Thanks. Back to Abhishek.
So your audio is on mute.
Mute. Abhishek, you are on mute.
Now, thank you so much, sir, for summing it up. Now, I would like to move to Ms. Prerna Vijay Kumar Mehta for her remarks on this, concluding remarks on this webinar. Ms. Prerna.
Thanks, Abhishek. I think the conversations and discussions really, touched upon various aspects of, how we should approach the operationalization or realization of SDGs on ground. And I think one of the important aspects while we talk about data collaborations, institutional setups, and how projects are kind of realizing, targeting SDGs and making it happen. I think at a national level, at a city or state level, we need to also kind of constantly keep building capacities and raise awareness about the linkages of these SDGs to actions or targets that are set under various missions. So I think that sort of mapping would really help cities to understand where they are actually contributing, why these actions are significant when it comes to their commitments to achieve certain actions in their cities or in their states. Another aspect that needs to be kind of always kept in view and kind of probably work a little more towards is creating general mass awareness. There is a famous saying that charity starts from home, and home is where we need to start. And if you need to start at home, then you need to kind of educate the masses about it. For example, we have been educating the masses about education, girl power or girl empowerment, women education. We have been talking about health issues, through various campaigns across media, print media, and audio visuals. I think there is a need to kind of start doing similar campaigning to educate the masses in a simple language, why planting a tree is important as far as communities are concerned, why giving
Very
access
right.
to public spaces is important when it comes to physical and mental health of communities, why it is essential for different age groups of cities, age group of communities. For example, we talk about 8 to 80 concept of cities. Why different age groups and their contributions and their perspectives are important when it comes to even designing their neighborhoods and asking for facilities, what should exist and what should not exist in their surroundings. So I think we need to take that kind of comprehensive approach. While top-down scenarios always exist, there is a requirement to involve communities at large. There are opportunities where communities can come together and actually contribute to this global agenda. And there are platforms that are available which facilitate that. But I think it still needs mainstreaming. So there is a conscious need to mainstream those actions when it comes to realizing or operationalizing SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you have made very valid points in the times of pandemic and when everyone was in lockdown. So the people have realized the importance of open public spaces and how they are so much, they have so much importance in urban life. So I think many cities in Europe and America, they have started redesigning their urban planning approach. And even I think the Paris is building new cycle lanes and green Paris by 2030. So there are many initiatives worldwide which we are seeing right now after this pandemic struck our cities. Like 90% cases are from cities. So cities have to really rethink their design and plan their projects, planning, and everything in sync with the emerging requirements. Now, I will move to Abhilash sir. To what is your suggestion to the cities or the participants, those are attending, the takeaways from this webinar?
Thank you, Abhishek. I would be very brief. Now that the most of the experts who know the SDGs here are participating, and like I said, there are many environmental issues attached to the, I mean, they are the goals of the SDGs. And since we work in the AILSD, work in the field of urban development and urban planning, so I think we should try, we all should try, all the participants should try in their own respective spheres of functioning, how best they can do the hand holding with municipal corporations, because that is the local self body which requires really to take action, because it is top down approach or bottoms up approach. Fact remains that what Delhi says or what New York says doesn't really come true on the ground. So we should all try to do what Prerna ji has also said, the capacity building, they're trying to sensitize the municipal administration about SDGs. And we could also in 2022, we could think of holding a competition kind of thing among the municipal bodies as to how many of the 17 goals have been achieved by one municipal corporation, so that sensitization, if begins by various agencies, whether it is AILSG or NIUA, ultimately it will help the society. So the fact remains, from January 2022 to December 2022, the municipal corporation should be on a very regular basis sensitized and hand holding be done for achieving the goals. So whatever achievement they start, because ultimately the municipal corporation, as I have held, maybe I am wrong, but I am still sticking to that point, that the municipal corporation's priority list from 1 to 10 does not figure SDGs. I may be wrong. Akanksha or Prerna will they may correct me, but fact remains that municipal corporations also, they are not against the SDGs, but they don't have budgetary provisions or they don't have understanding. So on both counts, we need to do capacity building, and therefore I say that 2022, I think hopefully there will be no third wave or we will not be stuck at home, and therefore we should in the next 6 months try to do the paperwork for municipal corporations for the implementation of SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this is very much required, that many cities, like you said, that they may not know about SDGs, but many of them, I would say, they are working towards the achievement of the sustainable development goals.
Correct.
Through different projects and programs. They may not know that this is
Part
towards
of
achieving
SDG,
SDGs.
yes.
But they are doing it. So we have to make them aware that when we are tracking the progress of sustainable development goals, so they can tell the government, they can tell the international agencies, these projects are linked to our SDGs achievement.
I'll make a very small point, Abhishek, here. When I used to be in Delhi and near that UN office next to the India International Center, I used to see the hoardings and flexes on which SDGs and goals and other things were mentioned for people to understand, if not. But I have not seen in any of the Indian cities which I have frequented in the last couple of years that there is no hoarding or there is no public awareness program from a municipal corporation about the SDGs. So if I walk onto the street as a journalist and I stop over a red light and ask somebody, are you aware of the sustainable development goals? So he will look at me with a plain face and say, what are you talking? So the idea is that conservation of water or conservation or plantation of trees or bringing down the temperature in the world and climate change, all these things are day-to-day happenings, and therefore we can't say that we will do it after 2 years or 3 years. It is required to be done today and by everyone. Otherwise 130 crore people would be in problem. So we have got a responsibility to and a role to play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I would like to move to Ms. Akanksha Loria, who has given us very good framework about how we can track the progress of SDGs. And I'm hopeful that the many participants from those are joining from cities, from urban local bodies, will find it very useful, and they may also contact Akanksha for further details and how this framework works. So Akanksha, please tell us what is the takeaways for the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much, Abhishek. I completely agree with what Abhilash sir has said. And in fact, you also have made a couple of very, very insightful points. The entire session has been very insightful, and it has actually covered all the aspects of what, where, when, how, and in fact, why not. I'll just take a minute and I'll reflect on the quote that I have read in a book written by Nassim Taleb in his book Anti-Fragile. He says that let's not teach birds how to fly. Rather, we just need to give them the right environment to do so. With that note, I would like to congratulate to you and to your entire team for having such a successful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akanksha. I think we are just hand-holding urban local bodies. We are not teaching them how to run their business, but we are just trying to be supportive and provide them all the essential support that like the experts like you are doing in their respective areas. So thank you so much, everyone, all the panelists for joining us today. Thank you to all our partners, Pilot for Dev, AMDA South Asia, CityNet, and everyone who has joined us today for all their support and presenting this wonderful, sharing the wonderful experiences, case studies, and also the strategic framework for urban local bodies. Thank you very much, and we will be continuing this series and different subjects on localization of SDGs. We will also be covering how to make cities disaster resilient, pandemic resilient, how local economic development works. So all these important subjects will be covered in the following webinars. Till then, stay tuned with us. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you. Kudos to your team.